Hey everybody, welcome to Tony's Time. I'm playing Santa Claus. I got my elf Indian cowboy down in Dixie hanging out. Looking forward to the holiday. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you, Arun.
Merry Christmas to you too, man. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, everything. Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate. If you worship alcohol, that's good for you too. So
Yeah, well, it's going to be. I don't worship it, but I'm gonna pray to a bottle or two along the way here over the holiday season. It's been a long 2020, and we're winding down a little bit here in the sports world, and we're also winding up. And of course, before we get to this week's show, I wanted to. Before we got into the games, I wanted to run something by you. There was an interesting conversation this morning on VSiN. That's on, what is it, 206 or whatever it is on XM out here. They have a sports betting network. I listen to Paulie and Mitch in the morning, and Gil Alexander had Michael Lombardi on, and they were talking about the Trevor Lawrence situation. And if you're Jacksonville and if you're the New York Jets, do you strategize the next 2 weeks, Arun, in on wins and losses? I mean, how do you do that? Tell your team to dump or not dump, because according to Lombardi, this guy is a 10-year franchise game-changing quarterback. And your thoughts on that situation?
yeah, I mean you should tank. I mean, what's the point of being mediocre forever? I mean, that's what the Spurs and Greg Popovich won't talk about it, but they tanked for that year with Tim Duncan when they had
Yeah,
the Admiral, right? So, they had the Admiral, but they decided to go ahead and tank that year so then they can get two big guys down low. And that's what you got to do. I mean, Greg Popovich is a great coach, but you can't do anything if you don't have the players. You know what I mean? I actually think that the Jets can get quicker, better because they have a great defense. So it was much more worthwhile for the Jets to tank because that defense is good. And I don't think the Jaguars defense is remotely as good, So I think they made a mistake. And I think the Jaguars, they made a mistake too. If they were going to tank, they should have got rid of all of their they shouldn't have gotten rid of their key defensive players. And they should have just told those guys, look, we might have a tough year this year. If you're going to get bad, just get bad on the offensive end. Don't get bad on the defensive end. You know what I mean? Because that's hard. You can fix the offense kind of quickly after getting a quarterback and a couple receivers, but defense is hard. So they should never let go of several of their defensive studs to LA and elsewhere. You know what I mean? But yeah, I would absolutely tank. I mean, if you got a guy that can change your franchise, it's so hard to. What's the hardest position to fill on your team? Quarterback.
yeah, it makes you go, and you're seeing some of the impacts these younger quarterbacks have had. Mahomes is obviously 3 years into the system now there at Kansas City. Of course, he didn't play his first year, but for one game because they had Alex Smith. But they got rid of Alex Smith, who was a really good quarterback, and he kind of put Washington back on the map this year, even off injury. So it goes to show you he was a good quarterback. But now this weekend, so that leads into my next question before we actually break down games. You've got the Jets at home this week, catching 9.5 against Cleveland, and you've got Jacksonville at home, catching 7.5 against Chicago. Do either one of these teams you think play and cover these spreads, Arun?
No, no, because I think if Cleveland was going, yeah, yeah, I think Cleveland. If Cleveland can thump the Giants, and the Giants have a great defensive front, then I think they can do pretty good damage against the Jets. But which game do I like more as the favorite? I would take the Bears as the favorite, right? I would take them minus 7.5. For some reason, I don't know how their coach kind of got to them that they can possibly get into the playoffs, but they believe. And this is the same thing that happens every year with Nagy's teams. Every year you kind of X them out, and they make this late game rush. And dare I say that Trubisky is looking good. I mean, this team is looking good right now. And they're starting to beat teams. They're starting to have some confidence here. And the Jaguars, I mean, they always play hard, but you'd have to think the Bears beat the Texans 36-7. Then they beat the Vikings 33-27. This team's dropped 30 plus points the last three games, including they should have beat the Lions too, but the Lions beat them on the road. But But man, they've dropped, we're talking about what, 103 points in their last 3 games, or 100 points or so over the last 3 games. You got to respect that. And I don't know if Jacksonville can score that many points. And the Bears aren't playing that bad of defense either. They held the Texans to 7. The Vikings really needed that game, or else they were out of the playoffs, and they scored 27. So rather than taking maybe the Browns to cover basically a double-digit spread, I think the Bears can get this done. If they can get it done against basically the Vikings and the Texans, why can't they get it done against the Jaguars?
Yeah, it's surprising to me. I had 2 sides and 2 totals last week and went 3-1, and the only side I lost was Minnesota. And we talked about it last week that maybe there's a little bit of an overreaction on the look-ahead line because the Minnesota Vikings were 6.5 on the look-ahead line. They dropped down to 3, and I thought I could get some value there. I thought maybe the Bears were a one-hit wonder against Houston with that offense. But Trubisky, the opening drive, it's interesting. The opening drive he had against Houston, he went 8 for 8 and got a touchdown pass. The opening drive against the Vikings, he went 6 for 6, and he played a good football game. And Chicago played a good football game. Defensively, I thought they gave up a little bit too much. But you got to think maybe that Jacksonville is kind of going to throw it in here. I don't think Malarkey feels that way. He's still trying to play for a job, which he's probably not going to have. But at the end of the day, I think Chicago's making a statement and definitely be I would think a teaser play for sure. You get them down on 1.5, you get them off 7, you get them through 7, you get them through 6, and you get them through 3. If you don't have Chicago Bears as one of your teasers, as part of your teaser package this weekend, I think you're probably foolish. On Christmas Day, ladies and gentlemen, we have Minnesota taking on New Orleans. I'm going to have possibly a substantial move in this game. That line 7-51 right now. So we're going to pass on that. And we're going to move on to Sunday for you here. And one game here that intrigued me a great deal, the Miami and Las Vegas game, Arun. Miami on the road laying 3. The look-ahead line in this was Vegas -2. Now, Miami got over on New England, something they haven't been able to do in a long time. They always play them tough, but actually beat them without a gimmick play or, remember a couple of years ago, Gronkowski screwed up a kick at the end of the game and they got a touchdown out of it. But Miami looks like a real contender without the thing they're doing it without is great quarterback play. As much as you hear about Tua, if you look at his numbers, it's nothing special. They're getting it done with defense and their special teams, and they're putting him in good field position. Everything's going his way in Las Vegas off a heartbreaking defeat the other night, and now Carr's out. But I'm thinking maybe Mariota gives them a little added oomph that they need, with the ability to run the ball. These mobile quarterbacks, Mahomes, Allen for Buffalo. You can go at Murray and Wilson for Arizona and Seattle, respectively. I think that Mariota gives them a dimension that might make this a very difficult game for Miami to go on the road and win right now. This is a 5-point flip on the look-ahead line, and that's relatively substantial. Arun, your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the over because I think if you're the Dolphins team and you have struggled on offense, isn't Vegas like the biggest site for sore eyes, right? A team that really can't defend well. It's a team that gave up 30 to the Chargers, right? A team that gave up 44 to the Colts, gave up 28 to the Jets, gave up 43 to the Falcons, 35 to the Chiefs. I mean, they've given up at least 30-plus points in the last 5 games. And if Tua was ever going to bounce back offensively, it might be here, and I think that the Dolphins have put up, 22, 27, and 19 and 20 points lately. But this is an opportunity for him to kind of finally bounce back, finally put up some points together, get some mojo, get some confidence. And it looks like the Dolphins are hell-bent on Tua is the way to go. You know what I mean? They're not – it's not Fitz. They could have yanked Tua any couple of times the last few weeks, but they didn't. So this is Tua's team now, obviously, and Fitz isn't going to say anything. He's going to keep cashing checks, right? So I think he'll kind of fall in line, and Tua can get hurt at any time. So they have a nice situation there with Flores. The question becomes, can Vegas score the points they need to score? But I think actual odds makers think they can. That's why they're only a 3-point dog here. Because if they would have put him at a 4.5-point dog, nobody would have blinked an eye. They would have taken him. I don't believe in the Vegas defense, but I believe in the Vegas offense to keep it close. Therefore, I like this game going over because you have to figure out if the odds makers think Vegas is going to do well, which portion is going to do well? The Vegas defense? No. The Vegas offense? Probably. So I like the over.
Yeah, and it's Miami's defense is really good. They got some good cover corners. They got a good safety. They're a good defense. However, when you have a quarterback that can buy time against them versus Carr, who's just a stand in the pocket passer, I think Mariota gives them a different dimension. I don't know if Las Vegas can win a game. Every year they've been under Gruden since he took over this second time around. Towards the end of the season of his seasons, they have regressed as a team. And you're seeing that now. And so, but I do think the over might be in play. And that is a Saturday game, folks, in the NFL. And there's bowl games on all weekend, including Christmas Day and all weekend. So be sure and utilize that free $60 button there above the our heads there. And there's a link in the description below. Click on that, get a free $60 to get yourself a couple of $30 free packages from us using that $60. That's $60 under the Christmas tree, ladies and gentlemen. So go ahead and open up the present and get hooked up. And going to be a good weekend, especially my bowl game of the year goes this weekend, Arun. So I'm looking forward to, and that'll be in the game everybody's talking about, actually. The Coastal Carolina and Liberty game. I'm going to have a substantial move in that game this weekend. So be sure and get over to Docs. And, of course, the NBA's going on as well. And before we get to the next game there, speaking of the NBA real quick, since it's Christmas, and I'm in the spirit of giving right now, Arun. I'm all decked out in my giving outfit, my happy hour outfit for later on. Your thoughts on how the Brooklyn Nets looked last night? I took them minus the 7.5, which I never lay 7 or 7.5 on the opening day of the NBA, but I really thought that team had come together. I thought the depth was good, and I think the Warriors were in trouble. But your thoughts on how Durant and the boys looked last night to open it up? I know it's only one game. It's not a barometer, 4 or 5 games, but pretty impressive opening there, hanging 125 on the Warriors and putting them down by 26 points.
Yeah, I think they looked awesome. And I think that trading for James Harden would be the biggest cancerous, poisonous thing that they can do because LeVert, Dinwiddie, and Allen are really good players. I mean, you have incredible depth with those guys. And you're going to sell your team for Harden. And it's like we talked about, you can have the big three, but certain big threes are better than other big threes. Not all big threes work, Garnett, Pierce, and Allen worked. Bosch and LeBron and Wade worked because they were unselfish, right? But Durant, Kyrie, and Harden will not work. Harden will dribble, shoot. Kyrie will dribble, shoot. And then you have, Kevin's probably the most unselfish because he's played with Steph and Clay before. And speaking of big three, obviously Durant, Steph, and Clay work too. So I think number one, the takeaway is don't trade for Harden and become a cancer situation, number one. And I hope Steve Nash is smart enough to realize that. Number two, I think that, I took the Clippers last night. And I think the Clippers have something to prove against the Lakers. I think eventually the Lakers always start slow, man, always. And I think that's how LeBron wants it. And that's how he can kind of whip the horse and slope down the final stretch. He never wants them to – he knows how to manage a team. It's like he's riding a horse, and he knows the gallop that it needs to have during the pace of the season. He's smart about it. He's done it enough times. And I also think that I think it's a 4-team race in the East. I think it's going to be some combination of the Nets, the Bucks, the Bulls, but these are the kind of the teams that are going to be in the mix. And then I think you got to look at the Sixers and the Celtics. So it's basically a 5-horse race here. So
you get a nice barometer here when we're taping this show on Wednesday because the Celtics are taking on the Bucks tonight. So I'm real interested to see that. And And it's going to be interesting. Just remember, folks, I guess the best free tip I can give you when it comes to the NBA is tiptoe through the tulip slightly early. The one thing about the NBA is it's always the same faces, but they're in different places. And these teams take a while to establish their identity and develop some chemistry and kind of get their mojo going, so to speak. Although I thought the Nets had a lot of mojo last night right out of the gate, which was a little surprising. I thought they would put them away, but I didn't think they would put them away with that much ease and just dominate wire to wire, although Warriors had some problems with Green and Weissman out and this, that, and the other. But nonetheless, all the NBA action you need right over there at DocSports.com. So be sure and get over there and take advantage of some of the discounts we have on our packages. Still have $100 off a season pass, and you can use that $60 below to put towards that package as well, along with the $100 discount. So be sure and get over there. A big game this weekend, and I guess the question is, and then it's a two-pronged question, what in the hell's going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Because a little over 3.5 weeks ago, there were a lot of people talking about this team going 16-0, and Don Shula would have to flip over in his grave and dump out a champagne glass because finally somebody went undefeated in the regular season, much like the Dolphins from the 70s. And all of a sudden, the wheels have come off. People are exposing weaknesses, meaning no running game. Roethlisberger doesn't look the same. Mike Tomlin, who I've told you on this show 1,000 times, and I'll tell you 1,000 more, is being exposed as not a good football coach. He's only as good as the coordinators around him, and he can't seem to get a handle on this team and turn them around. I mean, Finley at quarterback, are you kidding me right now? I mean, there were guys talking all over town here, Sharp, saying this guy's not even an NFL quarterback. You know, anytime they put him in a game, they're gonna lose, and they're gonna lose big. And you know, he threw for touchdowns, ran for touchdowns. The defense looked confused. The offense looked confused. And guess who they get to play? The Indianapolis Colts. You know, and this isn't home at Pittsburgh, but if you got to turn around a 3-game losing skid, Rune, I got to tell you something. Total 45, Indy laying 1.5 on the road. And by the way, Indy's 5-2 on the road straight up this year. The good road team. You know what we saw what they did to Tennessee on a Thursday night. It wasn't just they beat them; they took them behind the woodshed, and whooped their ass really good. This is going to be a very tough team to stop a losing skid on, because Colts are one of the few teams I think in the AFC that actually could beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's what a fall from grace, right? When people think you can win, people think you can win the Super Bowl and you can do really, really well, and and then you just really struggle. You continue to struggle too, and I think we kind of saw some warning signs a little bit, right? I mean, they lost to Washington, and then they struggled against a Ravens team that was having their C team out there basically. They played somewhat well against the Bills, but the problem with this team is that all of their key defensive players are hurt. They have some real key defensive studs that are gone, and I feel bad for them because no one talks about it. But they have three
Dupree
key
was huge. Dupree was huge for them.
He was, and they had 3 key linebackers that are really hurt and gone, and I think that's what's really hurt them a lot, and they just put so much pressure on the offense. Tony, these Steelers have not broke 20 points in the last 4 games. They put up 17 against Washington. They put up 19 against the Steelers, 15 against the Bills, and 17 against the lowly Bengals. They can't score, and they're banged up on defense. So there's one of these teams that plays with a lot of heart, but they're losing by 5 to 10 points a game. They're kind of in the game. They're always a possession behind, and they're really struggling. I'm surprised that the Colts didn't come out a little bit closer to 2.5, because I think they just have some respect for the Steelers to maybe bounce back, But notice the totals at around 46, 45 as well, which seems like a bit high too. But it's hard for me to imagine. I just can't go against the Colts right now too. The Colts know how to win games because Frank Reich knows how to coach. He just coaches them really well. And I don't think the Colts play particularly well against the Texans. We talked about it here. I said the Texans are probably going to do well. They can't play any worse like they did against the Bears. They'll play better. They snuck inside the 7.5, 7 or whatever you had. I think the Colts start out a little bit faster here, and I think they get it done. I think the Steelers lose again this week.
Well, you take a look at this game and all the problems that you just mentioned that the Pittsburgh Steelers have on the defensive side of the ball. People have figured out the dink and dunk offense and running Smith Schuster and Washington and those guys, Claypool over the middle on slants. So the injury list hasn't changed. Their ability to run the football, which they can't, hasn't changed. Roethlisberger doesn't look in sync for whatever reason. He threw some very errant passes that he usually doesn't throw. Whether that elbow's bothering him again or not, I don't know. So none of those three things have changed. Then you look on the other side of the ball. Who's the better team right now? The Colts. Who's the better quarterback right now? Rivers. Who's got the better running game? The Colts. Who's got the better defense? The Colts. Who's got the better head coach? The Colts. They're laying less than 3. Hell yes, you lay it. Oh, by the way, they're 5-2 straight up on the road. They're laying 1.5. You worried about the 1.5? Bet them on the money line. I mean, the Colts are the play here. Don't try. I don't think anybody can talk me out of it, Arun.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a case for the Colts, but you can't make a case for the Steelers.
Exactly.
Just because they're not at full strength. You can say that they're going to play their hearts out and they're gonna come back, or they could win because they're coming off back-to-back losses. But you could have said that against the Bengals, right? And then they lost to the Bengals, and now you're going to get into a team that, like you and I both said, they're arguably Super Bowl contenders. Like, you never know what Frank Reich's going to draw up, and I just think he has more options at his disposal than Mike Tomlin does. So.
Yeah. Now here we go. Now we're talking NFC East, and I never thought I'd be saying this season, but the surging Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Hurts, and of course I know you're going to pump your chest because he's a Bama boy, transplanted now. Of course, Oklahoma his last year, but nonetheless, he has came in. He has ignited this offense. They're putting up numbers that were unbelievable. Tough loss last week, but nonetheless, some big numbers. And, of course, Dallas off a big win as well here. And there's still some talk that either one of these teams mathematically could still win this division. Philly laying 2 here. This is a very interesting game, Arun, from a lot of different angles here. And, of course, what's weird is, if you look at the look-ahead line, it was a pick-em. Dallas in a pick-em, and the total was, let me get this right, 48.5. So the total has not moved. It's moved a point now. It's 49.5 everywhere in Las Vegas. And the total, I've got a 2.5. Well, that's a global, so I'm not going to mention that. But 2 across the board. William Hill, Vegas, DraftKings, and Circa. Philadelphia going on the road here to take on Dallas this week. Interesting game here. Clash in the NFC. Your thoughts on this? Does Philly continue to carry this momentum? Because guess what? They're playing the Dallas defense who can't stop grandma at the shopping cart at Costco. And now you got a mobile quarterback running around. Does Philadelphia get the win here? Yes or no?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the over because I think it's, I think you have to respect. I think everybody's talking about Philly, and that is correct. Because what's going to be interesting is Carson Wentz. I think will go to. I mean, there's a real chance Carson Wentz can end up, if Jacksonville doesn't get that. If they don't get that first pick, I think he ends up in Jacksonville. Now I don't know what the Jets are going to do. Because the Jets, they might believe in something, or maybe they don't, or maybe they just flat out make a straight trade. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. But I think that the Eagles' offense has looked exceptionally well lately, and this makes Carson Wentz look so bad. It just makes you look so bad. You know what I mean? That Hurts can come in here and do so well. I mean, going 24 for 44, 338, 3 touchdowns, and he's not incredibly active either. It just makes you look really, really bad, and his stock is so low right now. And the Cardinals really needed to win that game. and they were down at the half, 20-16. I'm sorry, it was 26-20 at the half, and then they were able to. It was basically a tie game, and they were able to win in the end. I actually had the Cardinals, luckily, but you have to, and Kyler Murray had to pass for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns to even win the game. But I think the Cowboys have surprised a lot of people. This team put up 41 points against the Niners defense, which is traditionally good. They put up 30 against the Bengals. They're making a push right now, and I think it's been made clear to McCarthy that if he doesn't show promise the last few games, he's going to be out. And I think that's kind of become evident. And I think both these teams are just going to throw haymakers at each other. Nothing to lose. It doesn't look like Washington's having Washington finally hicked up against the Seahawks a little bit. By the way, I think that the Panthers could upset the Redskins this weekend too, because I'm always high on the Panthers. But I think this game is incredibly important. I noticed the totals at 49.5. It's one of the highest totals of the week, actually, and it's one of the highest totals of the week for 2 of the worst teams. So I think that will tell you something too. I think it's going to be high scoring. I wouldn't be surprised if both of them drop something like. I think this is one of those 31-27 type games.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the over is the only way to look there. So now we're going to do the fun thing called last week. I've said it a million times on this show. I've said it a million times on my daily videos. And I'm sure over the years, Arun, of your expertise in handicapping the NFL, that you've told your clients this on video and in write-ups, that laying double digits in the NFL is extremely dangerous. Well, last week, the Jets won. The Bengals won. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little yes and no Q&A with Indian Cowboy right here on Tony's Time for Christmas. And I'm going to go ahead and throw these out to you. Double-digit favorites this week, yes or no? Let's go after them. Now we've got, since I have 10 in one spot, I'm going to run it by you. Tampa Bay minus 9.5 or 10 against Detroit. Yes or no? Do you lay it?
No. I think with Bevell, being the new coach and him having something to prove every week because he wants to get that job full time. And this is kind of like their Super Bowl. They're not going to the playoffs. They'll get up to face the Bucs.
There you go. And here's another one here. We're going to go right with I'm going to leave Cleveland, New York out of it because Cleveland's 9.5 and not 10. They opened up at 10. You got a little Jets love there. But another big spread here is, yes, indeed, your Dirty Birds catching 10.5 at Kansas City. Yes or no? Do they cover the number?
Yeah, I think they do. I think they're going to put their best effort forward, and I think they're going to hang tough in this game. And I think that this is their Super Bowl. I think they get up and they play really, really hard. I will say this, in the Tampa Bay-Detroit game, I don't trust the Detroit DBs as much, so I really like the over in that game a lot. That might be my free pick on that day on the video. So I like the over a lot because remember, Tampa Bay really struggled against Atlanta in the first half of that game. So I think they're going to bust out much better offensively right off the bat. So I like the over in that game. But as far as Atlanta, of course, man, I'll take Atlanta. I think the same thing. Coach Raheem is trying to, get his job, and similar to what Carolina did against Kansas City. I think they're going to play him as hard as they can possibly play him. This is the most excitement. And once again, Matt Ryan coughs it up late once again. And I think that just unnerves the Falcons a lot. And I think they'll show up. I think the Falcons are a live dog this weekend.
There's a lot of people that are saying that. So if you want to do it, like I said, we mentioned some teasers. If you want to tease, don't look at tease in Kansas City down there. Look at tease in Atlanta up. If you can get them to 16.5, that's almost a shoe-in. And with Kansas City now and Pittsburgh handing them, there's a lot on the line still for Kansas City in this game. They can get a first-round bye with the win here. They're looking like they may have home field playoffs throughout, but they can cinch a first-round bye with the win this week. And, of course, they'll probably end up getting that anyway the following week. But at the end of the day here, Andy Reid, I saw his press conference today. He's extremely concerned about Atlanta, and he did say one thing. He said, as one coach looking at another coach, he goes, this guy has a very good handle on his team, and they play extremely hard for 4 quarters, whether they're playing good or bad. He said they do bring it. They don't lay down, and they've got a lot of weapons that are going to give Kansas City's defense a lot of problems. I don't know what the weather is going to be in Kansas City. I have a lot of friends back there because I live there. supposed to be windy this week, but I don't know how system's going to do over the weekend. So, unless we have 30, 40 mile an hour winds, this ought to be a high scoring game because Atlanta's not going to stop Kansas City. Atlanta's going to have to put up 24, 21 just to cover, So
I think you'll see a big game from Julio here. And if Raheem wins this game, he'll get to keep his job. He'll get to be.
Oh, yeah.
They'll take the interim tag off if he wins this game. So I think that's the angle that you can look at if you want to.
And one more double-digit favorite. We've got him 11 at 2 different spots and 3 different spots at circa the Baltimore Ravens at homes taking on the G-Men here. I don't know what the status of I don't want anything to do with the game, so I didn't really look into it that much yet. It's only Wednesday, but I'm not interested in McCoy at all here. But do the Ravens cover the double digits here?
Yeah. I mean, I think they do. I think the Giants, they kind of know they're out of it at this point. So, I think if they were going to do something, they would have done something in their last game. And they just looked anemic in their last game. And the Ravens' defense is as good as the Browns' defense, but obviously the Ravens' offense is even better. And you know how the Ravens are, Tony. When they face lowly teams, they beat up on them. But when they face really good teams in the playoffs, they'll lay an egg. And that's just kind of how the Ravens' mojo has been. This is a lowly team, and the Ravens just beat the Jags 40-14. They dropped 34 on the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are kind of playing well. They still beat the Browns 47-42. For as good as, and then they have obviously a competent defense. And I know it's tempting to take the Giants at 11, but not this situation, not with this Ravens team. They want to put up a lot of points.
Yep, and the biggest game of the weekend, I suppose, besides Pitt and Indy, would be Tennessee and Green Bay. There's a huge total in this game. We were talking about totals. I think this is if I'm not mistaken, this is the highest total on the board. 56 points. Green Bay laying 3.5 here. Yes or no answer. Does this exceed the total?
Yeah, I think it does. I think this game is going to be chaos. I think Tennessee gets up with this game. I think the Tennessee gets up with this game. You know how Tennessee is. They get up for big teams. They have a tendency to play really, really hard against big teams. And I think what you have to ask yourself is, can the Packers defense, I think, is questionable, Tony. I think if they're going to lose, it's going to be because of that defense. And obviously you have a team that dropped 35 against the Browns, and the Browns have a decent defense. A team that put up 45 against the Colts, and the Colts are fantastic on defense. Yeah. Okay. When this team wants to bring it, they bring it. And they put up 30 against the Ravens. It was an overtime, but they brought it to them too. And I think they're going to really get up for this game. But what's interesting is the Packers are favored -3, but I don't think it's because – I think it's because the odds makers are afraid. The Packers are at home, the mighty Packers, right? And yet they're only favored by 3 points. I think it means that Tennessee is going to show up. I think the Packers are going to play from coming back from behind. And I think it's going to be one of those classics. It's going to be a great game. And I think the total is high for a reason. Because even if they put the total at 49, a lot of people wouldn't have taken the over. So why would you hedge and put it at 56? Because I think you're really afraid. So I think actually, and of course, most people are going to take the under in this game. So Vegas is going to be rooting for the over as well.
Yeah, and you want to check the weather up there. As long as the wind's not blowing, it's going to be cold, folks. It's December. It's Christmas weekend in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And it's going to be, colder than a well digger's ass in the Klondike, as we used to say. And right now, you've got it 3.5 on a consensus line at even, not -110. Circa out here has got them at 3 right now. Nuggets got them at 3.5. So if you like Tennessee, and you're watching this here on Wednesday night or Thursday morning, and you still got the hook on that, might be worth taking a look at Tennessee, and definitely taking a look at Tennessee in a teaser, because I think this has got shootout written all over it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's this week's show. Arun, Christmas weekend, family, Yule tide, good food, good times, good food and drink, some good games on. Anything going on over at Doc's this weekend with your bowl packages or anything special you're looking forward to this weekend sports-wise?
Yeah, last year in the playoffs between NFL and bowls, we went about 15-5. So we had a really good NFL playoffs and bowl year plus 2,500, and the NBA we posted plus 9,200 last year. I got off to a good start with the Clippers, and hopefully we'll have another good NBA season. And it's just a great time of the year, man. And we have NHL starting around the corner, so it's thankful to have sports. Thankful for you. Just thankful after this crazy year.
Yeah, we want to thank. I'll tell you what we're thankful for. We've had as many as almost six. We've had over 6,000 people one week tune into this show. We just kind of started it, and it's just kind of, as I like to say in my videos, a couple guys just drinking a beer, taking a piss over a fence post, just shooting the crap about the NFL, totally unfiltered, totally unscripted. Just a couple old guys just been around the block a few times, having a good time with the show, and we surely are thankful for everybody tuning in, and we hope you and your families, if you have to travel safe. If you're out and about, be safe. All those protocols out there, this, that, and the other. It's a little different year, a little different Christmas. It was a different Thanksgiving, but we hope everybody enjoys the holiday season, and we thank you for tuning in. For Indian Cowboy, I'm Tony George. God bless you and your families, and have a great Christmas.